So with the parent balancing challenge, it's just a kind of a challenge for us to all on a regular basis look at what challenges we are currently having and how it's the balance of, and how are we taking care of it, and how are we managing our lives. And there's always going to be challenges, and there's always going to be hurdles that we need to confront. And if we can do it with support and information, that is going to aid in our happiness and our family happiness. So that's a little bit about me. So when I was writing this presentation, I'm trying to get to the, so this is an outline of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about ourselves as people, and then how that impacts our emotions and parenting. And then we'll go into the parent challenge. We'll talk about defining our challenges, confronting our challenges, talk a bit about self-care and a self-care plan. This slide I share if you've been on a presentation with me before. This is a very common slide. It really comes from a lot of personal development and professional development that I've done as a mom of a child with special needs and as helping other mothers and fathers. I have found that just through the whole parenting challenge in general, how important it is to know yourself, because all of the issues that come up, all of this, many of the struggles start within me. And then let's say I'm struggling with something specific with my son or daughter, and my husband or my partner is not. A lot of that has to do with my personal story and my personal background. So if I don't know what I bring to the table per se in my family, I could be reacting. I could be reacting to a lot of things very differently than somebody else. So knowing your own personal story is really important and empowering. With that comes knowing your own personal beliefs and values. What do you value as a parent, and what is your family value? And are you on the same page as that with your partner or your extended family? You know, looking at yourself in terms of your past successes and your challenges. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and what do you need help with? You know, I naturally am a fixer, and maybe that's what drew me to social work, right? You know, you see a problem, you call, you fix it. So with that component, it's a great quality, I think, but also I am consistently, even today, I am consistently trying to solve everybody else's problems. So it's very hard for me to stay focused. I know that about myself. I've done a lot of work with that. But when I'm dealing with my son, especially with special needs, that impacts me almost daily. My immediate go-to is to solve his problem. And if you talk to him, he's 21 now, he knows that about me. You know, he's had to tell me to, Mom, I'm okay. And that's a struggle with mine. And it really, I have needed to ask for help, and I've needed to, you know, have my people around me. I've been very honest that sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm on autopilot, and I'm going over to like write an email to a teacher in high school when I know that's not appropriate. It's up to him to do. So that's kind of like a story of knowing yourself. Whereas if you were on the other spectrum and really about independence and self-reliance, those are great qualities too. But then maybe knowing when to step in would be hard for you. So the importance of knowing yourself is very important. Views on discipline. We were all raised, like we're all grown-ups, right? So we all were disciplined in certain ways. And some of us had great backgrounds, and some of us were disciplined in ways that maybe we wish it was different. And I'm sure as a parent, you have found some of those ways that you maybe really didn't even like creep into our present day if we're not aware, and especially when we're feeling overwhelmed and scared or sad, or I don't know if any of you have had the horrifying moment that you find yourself saying an exact quote from your mom or dad. You know, a quote that you said you'd never say, because that was part of us, and we have to acknowledge that to move past it. So with that, you know, education and background, we all have different ones, triggers, and then we all manage our feelings very differently. And understanding yourself and how you manage your feelings is really going to help you, because everything is magnified. I would say your feelings are magnified when you have a child with a visual impairment, or any type of special need. Everything's a little bit more intense, I would say. And also knowing your support system. Lots of families report, including myself, feeling a barrier or a little bit of distance between friends after your son or daughter has been diagnosed. Friends for a lifetime, people you've known forever. And that barrier doesn't, you can get through it and past it, but again, acknowledging that it might be there, some jealousy or some anger, is important to move forward. Any questions about that? I know 2 people joined us. Could you chime in to see who joined us?
Hi, Dottie Alvarado.
Hi. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Kim Mundy joined from Texas. I have 2 little ones, ages 2 and 4.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so that's a little bit, I mean, we could do a whole weekend workshop on getting to know ourselves. So we don't have time, so I'm just kind of throwing it out there of doing self-exploration when you can, journaling, doing those things to get to know your triggers and stuff better it's only going to be really beneficial in raising your family. And again, I just wanted to throw it out there, dealing with parental emotions. You know, these emotions are big, and they hit us hard, and they impact every choice that we make if we don't continually deal with them. And fear of the future, fear of, you know, there's so many different fears that go on. Fear for what your child will have to go through, fear for what he is going through, fear for what you're going through, fear that you're not strong enough. All these are common fears, but it's not talked about as much. So it's really important to know that you're not alone in some of your thoughts and feelings. Guilt. Lots of us have guilt about our child, and they're seeing them struggle, and we're human, we make decisions, and sometimes they're not the best decisions. Or if your child has a genetic problem, they a lot of times the parent feel a bit of guilt for that, but don't exactly know where to talk about that. And sadness, you know, increased depression and increased anxiety is prevalent in parents of children with special needs all across the board. You know, everything, being a parent of typical children is hard, and being a parent with children with kind of challenges is hard, and it taxes your personal relationships with your, you know, the divorce rate's higher. There are reasons that we need to pay attention to ourselves, even though it's so hard, because we're, most of our energy is put on our children. Another parental emotion that it's really important is anger. Anger is appropriate. Anger is necessary. You know, don't be afraid of anger. We just need to learn where to express it and how to express it and what we're angry at. So those are some, and happiness, you know, we have to have those other ones to be happy. So we need to allow ourselves to be happy. Sometimes in the midst of the biggest chaos and, you know, what seems like a horrific thing, something wonderful happens, and we need to allow to be in the moment and feel those happiness and not get tied up in the other emotions. Okay. Any questions so far?
Sheila, it's Linda with to my voice. But I guess I would add another one to your list, resentment.
Resentment, yeah. And how would you say resentment? Like
resenting what happened, resenting that, you know, your life has changed in so many ways. Maybe resenting, you know, you had talked about friends and family, maybe resenting that your social situation is not the same. You know, resenting the loss of a child in a situation that you expected to have happen turned out totally different.
Right. Great. Thank you for that. Any other emotions, you know, that I missed or that you would like to add? Okay. So the next slide, I like this. You've probably heard this quote before, but making the decision to have a child is momentous. It is to decide forever to have your heart go around outside your body. And I like that saying because it's hard enough to manage our own emotions, and then, you know, you put someone that you love, and especially as a baby, but as they grow, it's very hard to watch them hurt. It's very hard to watch them you know, adapt and have challenges and stay strong. So and how we do that usually is, and this is a whole different workshop, but I just wanted to bring it up because it all goes into the challenge of parenting, is having healthy boundaries with our children and with the community and with the school and with our spouse, our partner. Boundaries are an important thing, and I like this slide because it reminds me of, like, you know, like if your heart was outside yourself like the child, you kind of want to build a fence around your child so that they're safe. And, you know, you want this solid fence so nothing can get in, but then we realize that, you know, that's pretty lonely and isolating if we're not letting anything in. So we have to learn the appropriate boundaries for everybody so that we can experience all the wonderful things in life and the challenges in life, but still be safe. And I think as parents of children with a visual impairment or any kind of special need, we're constantly reevaluating the appropriate boundaries for our children. So that brings us to the parent balancing challenge. And what I have here is a scale. And I kind of want you to think about this in terms of, you know, a scale like a measuring scale that keeps tipping and going one way or another. And the goal of the challenge is not to have it equal. You know, there is really, the goal is for your awareness. And sometimes with it in a visual like this, you might become more aware. I don't think many parents, especially with kids with special needs, are going to have self-care above their challenges, you know. Maybe at times, maybe when our children are older, and maybe, you know, when we have them, we know that they're safe and taken care of, and we're on vacation or something, that maybe it's that it's tilted that your self-care is higher. But especially with the young ones, it's constantly teetering. You know, if you look at the weights that you can put on each side, they're constantly going up and down. And the thing about balancing your challenges and your self-care and everything is that it's a delicate balance. So if you add one more challenge, it's going to tip that scale. And your family has a delicate balance too that we call homeostasis of the family. And that family is used to functioning in a certain way. So when you start, let's say you look at this workshop and you say, I'm going to adjust one or two things, whatever two challenges you're having, when you look at that, you have to understand that your family dynamic will adjust a little bit also. And that's probably a good thing, but it's also, you might get some, maybe not even cognizant pushback from your family members because everything's changing just a little bit. So if you take one of your challenges off and start to share it with a family member, everything's going to adjust. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. All right. So the next slide I have is what if we had a workshop, this is the first worksheet that we'd have, and it's just taking, I would give you a little bit of time to just right now. It's not like a thesis that you have to look and say, what are your whole life challenges? And it's really just right now, like in this moment, in this time period, you know, what are your current challenges? And what are you currently doing for self-care? Just, again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's really just for you to get like an inventory of what is going on with yourself. You know, before we started the call, I was talking to Linda that, you know, the start of summer, right, for many of us, it's a very challenging time for me. June has always been a very challenging month. Just getting adjusted to the new schedules, and I sometimes can't feel like I catch my breath. So just acknowledging that there's power in acknowledging what's going on. Okay. So when we're looking at this, we can look at different challenges. I am sure there's more challenges on here. I tried to keep it kind of generic, but you know, and like you can see, it's all of you know, so like your emotional self, your partner, finances, church, friends, extended family, the community, work, your physical self, medical needs, school, siblings, all of these challenges can make up our one single day even, you know, all of them, probably most of us on the call are juggling on a daily basis. Any questions or anything glaring that I missed on this that you're currently challenged with? Okay. Let me go to the next one, and this is another worksheet, and depending on the age of your kid, your children, all of them, you could also utilize this worksheet to, because it's really typical for kids and adults to, once you're challenged, like with all of those challenges that I listed, to feel overwhelmed and then not know where to start, right? Like you know, I don't know, I can't fix it tonight. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So what this exercise, and also in my process of studying and everything, one of the things I've found that in order for change to happen, any change, in order for us to change our current situation, the first step is like exploring where we are currently at and acknowledging where we're at. So many of us want to skip those two steps and just go to where your goal is, right? We don't want to acknowledge where we're at because, you know, lots of times it's painful. But really, unless we explore it and acknowledge it, that change that we're trying to do, we're going to probably revert back to our old ways very quickly, because we have to heal. We have to know why we do what we do. We have to have this awareness and acceptance for change to happen. So this worksheet is just a simple way that, you know, you can do it yourself, or you can do it with a partner. You can do it with your child if they're old enough, like I said. So let's pick a challenge. So if my challenge is currently, anybody have a current challenge they want to throw out there? Okay, so let's say balancing your work schedule, maybe just balancing your work schedule, your appointments, and your relationship with your partner. So your challenge, that kind of is an all-encompassing thing, right? And where do you start with that? And you're feeling overwhelmed. So let's look at that. And so that's the challenge of time management and support, I guess we would say. And then it's important to look at, like, how do I feel when I think about this challenge? Like, what feeling am I feeling? And so when I think about that, sometimes I feel anger. I feel anger that I feel like all of the responsibility is on me. I feel overwhelmed because I'm making all the decisions sometimes, and I don't know if I'm right. So I feel insecure. I feel scared, and you know, I just, overwhelmed is a big feeling, I think, there. And then if you move on to the next thing, what kind of thoughts are you having when you think about this challenge? So this is current day. This is, you're breaking down the challenge. You know, your thoughts come into your brain, you know, and, you know, if you're doing any kind of cognitive, if you've ever done any cognitive behavior therapy, it's acceptance of your thoughts. It's not saying that they're all correct, but lots of times we have these thoughts that come into our head, especially when we're feeling all those things I just said, overwhelmed and scared and angry. We have all these thoughts that come racing through our head, and sometimes we react to the thoughts. And I mean, I know you feel scared that you had this thought maybe about your spouse, or you know, maybe even about the current situation that you're dealing with. And you know, for myself, you know, I can go to a thought of when I'm in the heat of a moment and it's a really bad, I feel really bad about albinism. Let's say we were dealing with a school issue or something. You know, my thoughts can go very quickly to, I hate albinism and why is this happening to me, and some self-pity in there, and then anger at everybody else. And, you know, usually nobody likes to talk about your thoughts, but it is important for you to acknowledge them, because unless we acknowledge them, they can drive our behaviors and our feelings. So that brings us into how are you behaving? So again, you need to look at what you generally do without judgment. This is, you've done the best that you can up until today. So you get an award for that. You know, we are all working really hard, and you guys come on this call and you're trying to better yourself and trying to manage your child's needs, and you're doing it all. So this is not about judgment. It's how do you behave when you're thinking about this specific challenge? So we all behave differently, right? Like when if I have gone to all these appointments and I have an expectation in my head that I might not share with my spouse about what I need. And so I have a whole internal dialogue of what I expect to happen. Well, when that doesn't happen, what do I do? So what behavior do I do? Sometimes, you know, I could, if I'm feeling this out, I could say, you know, I go watch the dumbest TV show I can find to shut my brain down, you know, like I want to just shut down. I don't want to talk. I'm overwhelmed. Sometimes I, you know, I yell. Sometimes I take it out on other people. Sometimes I call a friend. Sometimes I go for a walk. So it's important to kind of look at what you do when you're in the heat of the moment. Okay. Does that make sense? Anyone have any questions, comments? Okay. So the purpose of the
Sheila, my
go ahead.
comment might be that everybody's overwhelmed.
With what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's check in and see if that is true. How would someone be willing to share? How?
It's very spot on, in my opinion. I know there's moments where I'm totally overwhelmed, especially having 2 toddlers who were born blind because of a genetic LCA condition, and it definitely can be overwhelming to balance a husband that travels and is away a lot, so I manage all the appointments and, you know, just day-to-day school drop-offs at daycare and work schedules, and then everything else, you know, that has to be done around the house. So it can definitely be overwhelming. So it's nice to know that you're not alone in that feeling.
Right. Yeah, and I thanks for sharing that. And I think it's important, even though it's not like, you know, I'm a therapist, but it's not fun to break it down like this sometimes, because, you know, like you said, it's isolating, it's overwhelming, and sometimes when you do this, you become overwhelmed, like Linda was saying. But I do think it helps us understand, so then we could move to an action step of the next slide is confronting your challenge, right? So we're going to take one thing, right? We're going to take one challenge. We're not looking at all of them. We're going to take one challenge, and now we've broken it down, so we're going to make a statement of that challenge. And in that statement, I really, you don't have to share the first worksheet with anybody. That's for you. You can share it, but you don't have to. But what it should do is help you break down your challenge. And when you're sharing your challenge with others, because ultimately you need help from other people many times, especially parents of children that have medical issues or any kind of disability, we need help. I mean, we can't do it all ourselves. It's not we can't live on an island and get everything done. So having a strong statement of, you know, I need assistance, I feel overwhelmed and sad, and I need you to, so being clear in our ask and clear in what we need. Sometimes we don't know what to ask, and that's okay too, but we're going to get there if we at least can be clear with how we're feeling and what we might need. So many times we forget that step, and we just want our feelings to go away, and nobody really knows how to help us, you know. It's a big ask to ask our partner or our best friend or our mom and dad to know how best to help us. That's our responsibility, and that's it. The more we do this, the better role models we're being for our children, who are going to need to ask for help and going to need to manage their emotions and feelings. So if it's hard for us, our motivation can always be, you know, I'm teaching my children how to do this. You know, I need to do this so that I can be a positive role model. So when we look at our statement of challenge, that's for example, what I brought up would be, you know, the managing of the appointments. So it could be something like, I feel alone and isolated and scared because there's important medical decisions to be made, and I know you know, for this would be for a partner, and I know you can't be here every day, but this is what I need. Or if I don't know what I need help with this. Does that make sense for people?
Yeah, it does.
And then the next step is important because, you know, it's about taking ownership too. So the first thing you want to do is say, what can you do? What is it that you can do? You've already looked at what you're doing, and some of that's probably wonderful. So you don't want to stop everything that you're doing, of course. But what in addition can you do that's going to help this problem? You know, for me, a big one is admitting I need help, not expecting others to read my mind. You know, I feel like sometimes everyone should be able to know that I need a hug or I need a moment of your time. You know, so for me, that's what I can do. I can mean what I say, and I can say it without assuming that other people know what I'm thinking. And then what you need, then you think about what you need from others, and this can be practical, very practical. We're juggling so much. We need practical things too, as well as emotional support. We need time. We're always stealing time, you know. We're staying up late to get the things done that we need to be done that we can't do during the day because we're managing our kids, you know. We are burning the candles at both ends sometimes. So we do need others for practical things too. So, and so do our kids need others. So we need to get good at asking for help and defining what we need and when we need it. I need help, you know, on Friday nights between, you know, 4 and 8 or something, you know. It is helpful to give exactly what your expectations are, especially if you're asking for the first time. And I know I work with a lot of extended family members, and that's when the boundaries come in. When we're asking for help, we need to be clear and we need to allow for a discussion, because I'm sure people on the phone have had the experience of you turn over the responsibility to somebody and you have to be open to them doing it a little bit differently than you would do. and that is hard to give up control. And it's hard, you know, even if you let somebody take them to the doctor's appointment, sometimes that can feel really foreign to you as a parent, because if you were the one usually doing that, and the guilt comes in and fear, and then that dynamic of whomever you ask to take them to the appointment can be challenged, because you start trying to control, you know, did you ask this? Did you ask this? Did you ask this? Did you ask this? And then that person feels like a failure and doesn't want to ever take them to the doctor's appointment again. I'm assuming there's people on the phone nodding, because I think that's a common thing I've heard from many parents, that it's hard to give up control, even though we're swarming in responsibility. To pick one thing to give up control with is very hard. Any comments about that? Okay, and then the next one is this is just a one, because I acknowledge that we all don't. Some of us have a really wonderful extended family. Some of us have a lot of support, but many of us do not. So we have to make it almost a job to find that support, and we have to get out of our comfort zone sometimes to get it. So that might mean joining a group. It might mean reaching out to a therapist, asking for referrals, going to asking a friend, you know, reconnecting with old people that we might have lost track with. If you know people from Facebook groups, I know, you know, asking, sometimes we need personal connection. So it might take getting out of our comfort zone of how we're going to find others to support us. Okay, and then we're going to do an action plan. So that's kind of taking all of those things and making an action plan. Very small, not large and lofty, but a manageable action plan. Okay, so that's the challenge part of, that's the challenges, and I would be amiss if I didn't talk about the other side, which is the self-care. And I'm going to try to do that fairly quickly so we can have a discussion if anyone would like to share. So self-care is you know, it's really important. And I know as parents and as somebody who works with a lot of parents, it can feel really dismissive when like a friend that we feel who has everything always tells you, you got to take care of yourself. So I don't want to be perceived like I'm doing that. I acknowledge that this is, you know, we have things that we need to do, and self-care is really, really hard. And I am in no way telling you what exactly you need to, you know, what self-care, what steps you need to do. It's just for you to evaluate what you're doing. So I've broken down the self-care into different components, and this is another worksheet that you could share with your child, or you know, like if they're old enough, or your spouse, or whoever you're talking to, or just keep it to yourself. But I broke down self-care in terms of mental, emotional, physical, practical, social, and spiritual. And so it would be really good if you know, you took a couple minutes to take like an evaluation of what you're currently doing for all of these components. And don't be hard on yourself, and it doesn't have to be like for like mental self-care. You don't have to be in college, or you don't have to be like reading, you know, a really educational book. It can be whatever you mentally challenges you and keeps you alert, you know, whatever mentally self-care, keeping a journal, using your phone for appointments, all of those things, like kind of take care of yourself. We always say, this is kind of a practical self-care, but now my husband and I have this thing of like when I leave something, or if I with passwords too, because I know we all have so many passwords and then we forget and then we don't know. We always say, well, I'm taking care of future Sheila and writing this down in a safe spot, so when I forget, I'll know where it is. And so every time I like set an appointment or set a reminder to do things, you know, like it comes up in my head and I set the reminder, I feel like that's us taking care of myself, because it's kind of lightening the load. I know I'm going to do it. I've set a reminder, so I can now get back into the moment, because sometimes those, you know, we're in the moment with our kids, we're doing something, and then we have a thought come in about tomorrow's appointment, or I need to make that dentist appointment, I need to make that doctor's appointment. And then we get stuck on that, and we're out of the moment with our children. So sometimes it really is as quick as setting a reminder so that we can get back to the moment. Any questions on that? Okay, so, and then much like we did for the challenges, taking a self-care plan. And so let's say you're going to address your physical component of self-care. You're going to write some goals, some measurable short-term goals. And then you're going to write what changes are necessary. Same kind of thing. Look at what you're doing now. I'm sure we're doing a lot more than we think most of the time. But then I'm going to add one or two things to this. I'm going to go for a walk if I can, or, I mean, many of us can't even do that. So I'm going to walk in place, you know, whatever you need to do. Sometimes, like for self-care, sometimes, you know, monitoring your steps you'll be surprised on how much you do, and you know, you'll feel good about that too. And then of course, because we need help, help I need from others, and get good at asking for it, you know. It is important that you do these self-care things. And if you have determined that you need to do whatever it is, an hour a week, be it therapy, be it workout, be it go swimming, whatever, we need to make sure we ask for help and find other people that will take our children off, you know, that we know our kids. If we don't know our kids are safe, it doesn't matter. We're not going to be able to do, we're not going to even, it's not going to be self-care. It's just going to be increased worry. And that's not our goal. Our goal is to decrease our worry. So we need to make sure it's actually self-care and not just guilt and worry about being away from our kids. Okay. So then I go back to the parenting challenge, because it really is all about, it's changing always, it's reevaluating, it's asking for help, it's acknowledging what a good job we're doing, but knowing that, you know, we need help. We're not, you know, the isolation is real. We need to step out of our comfort zone sometimes and get the help that we need. So that's what I have. I would like it if we had a little bit of a discussion. If you guys, this is the first time I've presented this workshop. You know, it usually would be done in a workshop, so in this format. So if you guys have any feedback, if you think I'm crazy, you can tell me that, because that's all part of the self-improvement. So let me know. What do you guys think? Any comments?
Sheila, it's Victoria. I just wanted to say, I think that the part at the beginning where you mentioned about looking back on why are we doing things the way we're doing, what in our history, like with our parents and things like that, I think that's really important. I know I've done it. I've said the thing I'm not going to say, and handled a situation, or my husband's handled a situation in a certain way. And I think that that's really important to look back and say, why am I reacting in this way? Why am I doing it this way? And then a lot of the things that we're projecting upon other people are actually something that's within ourselves. So I thought that was a really important point.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And I think too, as our children get older, and what we worry about too with our children often says more about ourselves than what our child might be actually going through. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I will say I'm doing a lot of self-care this week, because Kala is at the Illinois School for the Visually Impaired camp for a week. I know she's getting taken care of there, so.
Yes, and she's learning lots of independent skills. Yes, you have gotten a good weekend for that, yeah. And I'm glad that you could get on this call. And, you know, I think too, you know, kids bring to us what we need to work on too, you know, and our kids who have unique challenges, and visually impaired kids, socially, it's really hard, and it's hard to watch them struggle. And we also need to bring up, I mean, it really is either way, whatever childhood you had. If you struggled in junior high, I can't tell you how many new parents I have with a child with a visual impairment, or really any disability, and one of their first questions is bullying in junior high. So they've skipped over everything, but that question has a lot to be said about, you know, maybe what they struggled with the most, right? So it's important to look at that, because we don't want to be self-fulfilling prophecy either, because if we're constantly worried about it, we're going to over-parent about it. I know I was over concerned about friendships, and I worked twice as hard as my children on their friendships. I mean, and you can all guess how that went, you know. An over-involved mom doesn't really lend itself to good friends as your kid gets older, you know. So but that said more about me than anything about my kids. They would have been fine as friends. It was more about me. Melanie, are you still on? Or Roger?
Hey there, I'm late to this call. I'm really sorry. I'm Rebecca, and I just got on maybe 10 minutes ago because I was
that's okay.
picking up something far away and just stuck in the car coming back. I'm sorry if this maybe has already been covered because I've missed so much. But I'm kind of wondering, how do you evaluate whether you need self-care, whether it's you need self-care or you may need something, a more serious intervention like seeking therapy? And I'm sorry that might have already been answered.
No, it wasn't, but it's a very, very good question. It's a very important question. Well, I think, in terms of the presentation, I did have a slide in here that you can, go back and look at, defining the challenge, so in that, you're looking more deeply into what you're struggling with. So let's say it's isolation or it's sadness because of isolation or worrying, anxiety. When we start breaking that down, if it's one, if you can't see your way out of it, of course, you need help with that. I believe in therapy, obviously, and I think every parent should go to therapy because of what Victoria and I were just saying, is that parenting in any situation brings up your insecurities like nobody's business, right? Like you are confronting things that I confront things I never even knew existed, and in a perfect world, that's hard, right? But when we have extra challenges and real life difficult situations, it's really hard to manage. So I would say, if you're having trouble coming up with steps, if I would always say in self-care, I would say therapy is self-care. So I think it would never hurt. I think my personal belief that with your partner or extended family, whoever you're parenting with, this is hard work. It's challenging work. And because of whatever disability, it's magnified. So I have, if you haven't gone to therapy, the important things are finding a good one and asking around and making sure, feeling free to say it's not working and walk up to, get somebody else. Don't stick with a bad one. We all have different personalities. We all have different therapists that we need, and I also think that every partnership in parenting should at one time or another sit down and I feel like magic happens in the room of therapy and you can say things without reacting. So even just dealing with a diagnosis, I feel like sometimes people need help with that. There are so many emotions there. So I'm not sure if I answered that.
Yeah, sorry, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you for bringing that up, and also the importance of therapy for our children. We are constantly dealing with as they're young, we're dealing with OT, PT, vision, whatever they need, we're constantly dealing with that. And sometimes their emotional securities and their ability to express themselves isn't dealt with as easy. So I always advocate for, I like finding a therapist that I trust. So the best time to go to therapy is actually when you're feeling good, because that's when you can actually do some really good work. you can look at some of the challenges that that you have. Of course, if you're not feeling good, you should go to therapy to get yourself to feel better. But don't stop just because you're feeling better, because that is actually when you can make some real progress on like your history and your goals, and get the support that you need. So I advocate for having someone that you trust, like finding someone before you need it. So, because like I remember, like I shared in the beginning with my son when he was diagnosed, I had a lot of therapist friends, and even, but it's not like I was going to go. And I was a natural social worker, and I remember just like being brought to my knees with, why can't I just have a social? I need help. I need help finding the right people. I need help, and that was a big step. I think it's very challenging. So finding them, even if you're not going to use them, so when you need them, not if you're going to need them, is a good thing to do.
Mhm. Mhm. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming tonight, and it's really usually not something. It's not an easy topic, but it's a really important topic. You guys have my email, I hope, and if you want to reach out to me, I'm more than willing to connect with you. I will send out this recording, so Rebecca, you can listen to the beginning if you would like. And other than that, thank you very much. If you have any comments and you'd like to share, you can shoot them to me. I always like some feedback. And everybody have a good night, and take care.
Thank you, Sheila. That was wonderful.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Thanks. Good night.
Thanks.